就是 Jack Pan， 那他其实他本身是做信托遗嘱，或是你要婚前协议这些，他都是有做，就是没有做移民这一块，车祸也没有做 ，OK， 离婚现在也不做了，因为你就遮就没有做，所以就是其他的家务事其实都可以问。那之后今天全部 Q&A 都是免费开放，如果你私底下想要问，我不想要给媳妇的那个钱的都可以问哈，都可以预约的，没有关系的。那他今天的演讲 topic 呢，我是请他讲跟 AI 相关的法律，因为很多人做的 AI 影片 post 上去，会不会有法律的问题？这可能是现代人比较关心的事情，就特别请他针对这一块。那我就废话不多说，掌声欢迎我们的 Jack。
Good. Well, this will be in English, of course. But you know, today marks a really, really sad period because of the fact that tomorrow Sora will shut down. OpenAI is shutting down Sora, its AI generative video app, as of tomorrow. And so what I am doing as of right now, and I am downloading all of my content that I've been creating. And it's numbered about close to 20,000 videos at this point. So right now, my computer's kind of scraping everything that I've been creating. And why would an estate planning attorney be talking about AI? Well, it's kind of property rights in any regards. And so let's go to the next video, actually. Feel free to look at the video instead of me. All right, so my point is today's going to be a lot like in high school and elementary school where you'll probably be watching a lot of videos instead of me actually talking. This is a video clip that I created on my way home today to this meeting that we're having today. It is a very simple prompt. All it is give me 3 sushis dancing with one hand roll, and they're singing to a vintage song, and that's it. That is all I have written to AI to request it to create this video. Now, part of what I want to talk about is everything that you see here today. In fact, if you're recording this, or if you're taking photos, feel free, because I do not own any of this. My entire presentation is copyright free. I have no legal rights over anything that I'm about to show you. None of the content that I've created, because I didn't create any of this. And this is where we are living in a very different world today. Most of the things that we are creating, at least on the US side, you actually have no rights whatsoever. We'll go to the next video real quick, or next slide. And that's kind of what I want to talk about, is that in this AI world...
You 100 souls who said yes when everyone else called me mad. You stood with me when it was just a scream, a dream, and a whole lot of noise. You believed in something that wasn't even real yet, just me. You're my first 100, my family, and I will never...
Now, let me introduce you to one of my characters. I have over 50 different characters I've created over the course of my tenure in Sora. This is one of my very first, when Sora started allowing characters to be created. This is called Rogue Bacon. It's largely, in hindsight, based off of Flynn Rider, who is a character in Tangled. And I named him Bacon largely because I wanted him something related to Kevin Bacon's 6 degrees of separation. Now, what's scary about this as well is that when I created this, all I wrote was, a content creator talks to his followers and says that you are my first 100. Nothing else. I have not described how he looked, what he was dressing, how he sounded. And so many of the characters that you see on many of the AI generative platforms, it's as simple as giving them very basic information. But while I've created probably close to 400 videos of this person alone, who doesn't exist, there is no rights to this person's likeness. I have not created anything about his inherent nature that everyone is now using and repeating. One of the fun things about Sora that I will sorely miss is the fact that other content creators can use your character in other contexts. And so it's kind of an open source kind of IP in many regards that, again, is shared with everybody. So we'll go into the next slide. And you'll see a lot of Rogue Bacon in general, because he was one of my very first characters. Also created, and I didn't have him in this video, but there's a Brother Panda. So it's a cute little panda monk that I created to be a little bit more childish and more mature, but he was one of my other characters I do routinely use. Now, part of the reason, again, is that AI-related lawsuits are certainly on the rise. And for a lot of people, especially whether you're young professionals or young business owners, it may not have a lot of impact on you directly. But as we continue to use more and more of AI, and especially as companies continue to use more and more of AI to create things, again, who actually owns what you're generating? For a lot of times, if we were to do this the old school way, Microsoft PowerPoint, it would definitely have copyright notices in some regards, because you're creating it. And look, I spent the time to create this PowerPoint, the content within it, and so I have the right to control who has the ability to reproduce or to use. But this, again, completely generated by Claude, by Canva, by GPT. I have had nothing to do with it except to say, give me a PowerPoint presentation about this subject. And so, do I have any rights to it? Can I control it? Because here's the other thing too. If other people use the exact same prompt, if you go home and type into ChatGPT, and again, GPT is kind of terrible these days by comparison to Claude, but if you were to ask the exact same thing, and lo and behold, it generates something that's very similar to my presentation today, I can't control it. I have no right to say, wait, you're infringing on my presentation that I created. And again, what I'm showing you today is in many regards what is changing. Next slide. And it could be another video. Now, this video you may have seen. We'll watch maybe just the first few seconds of this. But back in November of 2025, when this came out, this rocked Hollywood and media companies. And so if you've not seen this, please let's roll the clip real quick and see if we can. You're seeing today what is supposedly Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise fighting with each other on a rooftop, talking to each other, in audio that's very similar to theirs, and we can go ahead and skip it. None of this is right. And when this came out, everyone was grossly afraid that AI would completely upend media companies altogether. That was November. We're now in April. Nothing has significantly changed. Now, at some point, AI processors may be able to be as expedient and as cost-effective in many regards that we can produce a lot of these videos very quickly. You can see that this video is technically 2 minutes and 56 seconds. This would take me over a month, even on Sora, to try to create something that's relatively similar, that is relatively consistent. And so where we are, at least today, for technology-wise, to replicate something that is this on a consistent basis is still very much far out of the reach. And so one of the funny things that when I look back at this particular news at the time is that everyone was afraid that AI would, again, lose actors, right? We would have tons of copyright infringements left and right. We would have the ability to replicate deep fakes and put people on commercials that they've never seen before. But again, as of today, nothing like that has happened. In fact, if you were to look at the Super Bowl commercials, all of them were absolutely terrible. They either looked generally fake, or unbelievable, or we just didn't care about it because it was an awful product. And so, to the extent that people are still using AI to create content, it's still nowhere to the near of the saturation or the abilities of traditional media. We'll go on to the next slide. Now, in many regards, if you were to take some time and to look at the terms of service, many of these platforms, whether it was OpenAI, Grok, Gemini, Meta, Claude, their terms of service actually does say to the extent that your content that you create, the output, will be yours legally, that you could own. Now, I think that's interesting to say that because they assign the ownership to you, not because they were actually giving you ownership, but because they're giving you liability. If you were to be sued for infringement, for defamation, AI wants to say, no, 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 we were just facilitators. We did not actually create this. We did not defame the actors. You, Henry, were the one who created the video of Tom Cruise. You are the one who Tom Cruise should sue, not us, the company. So this assignment is really interesting as a lawyer because we kind of see this and say, aha, I know what you're doing. You're passing on the liability. You want nothing to do about being sued. We'll go on to the next slide. Because, this original
Power of the stronghold, aye. How? Strength of the ancients flows through me. The fortress won't stand
Now,
a chance.
I know most of us are Taiwanese, so you may not be as familiar with the I have the power talk. For those of us who know, it's from He-Man. And so I've taken Rogue Bacon. I tried to actually have to say, by the power of Grayskull, but they wouldn't let me do that. There are some limitations that AI has, the platforms are created to at least identify that there is an actual IP infringement. And so I was able to say I have the power, but that was it. Now, my point of this, I think I was trying to get to is, well, actually, I don't really remember what my specific point is. So we'll go to the next slide. Okay, understand basic copyright for content creators. Now, so this is kind of where it gets really fun for content creators, at least to understand. Because everyone intuitively, the main thing what you're trying to do with AI these days, at least what I've been doing, is just create content that are based off of derivative works of other people, right? I've created an entire series of One Punch Man, where Saitama does a lot of different things, for instance. I've created different episodes of How I Met Your Mother, or Two Broke Girls, or Gilligan's Island. And again, all of that is technically an IP infringement of somebody else's work. But in many regards, they're okay within some sort of context of fair use or parody. And so for content creators, at least on one side, we've already talked about the fact that nothing you create is actually yours to own. In fact, I just remember what I was supposed to be talking about. This original conversation was back at the end of February. We had the snowstorm. What we also did not know was that right after the snowstorm, in March, early March, the Supreme Court would decline to hear the Baylor case, which completely upended AI copyright rights. Here's why. Back in 2019, a AI scientist created some artwork and submitted it to the Copyright Office, deliberately saying, I had nothing to do with this. This is completely created using my software. I have no human input on it beyond starting the system. The Copyright Office denied copyright rights. Baylor sued, he lost in court, it went to appeals, and as of March 2026, right after the snowstorm, the Supreme Court declined to hear it, effectively putting a stamp on the law of the land that says AI-generated content is not copyrighted in the U.S. And that happened in March, right after. So I'm technically glad I didn't have to talk back then because the law's completely changed at this point, right? Now, I've heard from my colleagues in Japan that it's a little bit different in other countries. So your rights in different countries, especially in Europe, could be different. But again, purely generated AI content, you have no rights. Now, the problem with the case is actually a little bit limiting, and only lawyers like Justin and I would probably find this interesting, because all it said was content completely created by AI with no human interaction is not copyrighted. But what they didn't figure out is what level of human interaction would make it copyrighted, right? If I dictated the music, if I shared things that I drew, would that actually make it copyrighted? So the Thaler case actually still leaves a lot to be answered for. But let's go on to the next slide. So maybe I just want to show more videos. Here's my favorite.
This just in, the Supreme Court declines to hear the Thaler appeal.
I mean, how am I not being sued by John Williams, or the people who created Jurassic Park, or the movie theater who produced the film, or Larry King's estate, all right? My favorite things, especially towards the end of Sora's final days, is the fact that we basically just lost a lot of IP restrictions, and I could do just about anything, right? Larry King, Jurassic Park, and I told him to give it a majestic soundtrack, which, guess what, meant John Williams. Next slide. Really, I'm just showcasing the fun of AI that my wife really hates me for the past couple of months because I'm just doing AI work. So, we've talked about the human authorship goals. That what Thaler has said is that AI, at some point this will continue to be litigated because again, it's a percentage of involvement, right? If I were to draw something, all right. So, as it concerns content, maybe what I'll say, and the highlights before I show more fun videos that I just care about showing, is this. To the extent that you are not creating anything for commercial use, you're generally fine, right? Nothing that I've created will ever go into circulation, will ever have a subscription, I'll never have it on sale, you'll never see it on YouTube, you'll never see it on Barnes & Noble. Because of the cases that have lost, that's really the turning point. And so there's a plethora of cases, whether it was J.K. Rowling suing, the next one, Harry Potter, Seinfeld, we'll keep skipping. And in every single case that we've had, in general, keep skipping.
Red Scout to Squadron, Titan formation. Watch those fighters. I'm beginning the run. Cover me. Watch breaks over, folks. Time to turn up the heat. Some timing challenge.
Once again, violating the British monarchy, McDonald's, Star Wars, and Disney. And so, we'll go to the next slide. Now, the point being is that the key component of everything as a content creator is how you're using it. Because in a private context, fan fiction, you're probably okay. But once you start to try commercializing it, try to create derivative works, try to put it for sale, that's where you cross the line and you will be sued. So we'll skip. So anyways, I know we have a lot to talk about, and I actually am a little bit surprised. I thought this talk was going to be a lot shorter in general. I did not anticipate going as long as I was going to, but I think it's because I just love showing content I was creating for giggles. And what I want to summarize as a lawyer to help everyone, what you should be walking away with today is, AI is amazing. You will get sucked in a lot of different directions. To the extent that you're worried about being sued, just ask yourself, am I making a profit, right? Because if you keep it for private use, you keep it for, to the extent that you're not degrading, defaming, or causing anyone ill will or harm to the reputation, you're probably safe. Plus, you may not have enough money for people to sue, right? But the point that you're actually starting to try to commercialize it for public, for consumption use, the reason why you're going to be sued is because of licensing. If they allow you to do something and basically ignore your use, they've allowed everyone else to do the same thing, and they've lost the right to sue. So they have to stop you once you start trying that. We'll go see if there's any more other fun slides that I care about. No, keep going, keep going, keep going. That was a Top Gun one. We'll just skip that one for now. Keep going. So this is one of the landmark cases with Seinfeld test. So the person created a book that was an aptitude test based off of Seinfeld characters. And guess what? They were sued and they lost. The only case where they actually won was a derivative use as it concerns Gone with the Wind. You can skip to the next slide. And next one. So Next one. This is the only case that's actually won in court, where somebody took existing characters, completely transformed the story from the standpoint of a slave, and they got, the court said, yeah, that was enough of a change from the original works that will let this be fair use. But again, in most cases, 7 out of 1, 1 out of 7 succeed, the other 6 generally fail. All right. So, any questions in general? Keep skipping. No, keep skipping. Keep skipping. Keep skipping. Keep skipping. Oh, I guess we'll end with this one.
Humans write the code. Each line is an act of authorship.
And authorship earns copyright protection.
Yeah, that was the final message using Avatar and Friends. All right. So I do apologize. I guess I really wanted to share videos instead of talking. Any questions, by the way? Great. So without further ado, please eat. I'm here only as your early entertainment. Yes.
So what if, like, for you and I do a lot of opinions, consultation. So what if you would like use AI service, for example, to provide history-based consultation? On that basis, would that get your name and my name in trouble because we use past history and on that basis, AI providing consultation using our name or practice, and that provide false opinion, would that create liability?
Sorry, well, I don't quite understand the question. Can you rephrase it again?
In terms of insurance liability, if AI uses full past data, past insurance data that they can pull because it's existing data.
Okay.
好的，来，我来递美式。
Okay. So this is actually a really interesting question that goes beyond content creation. So the question that's asked is, if I use information and put it through AI, am I liable for the information that is produced? And this becomes really tricky because while we keep talking about AI, one of the fascinating aspects is nothing is actually new. You see, with the context about that, the liability is not the finished product. It's the original source of the information, and does it breach other confidentiality or privacy rights, right? And so, a lot of insurance information may derive from patient information that's already protected under HIPAA. And so, if you use the information without a patient's consent, that is a HIPAA violation. That's not an AI violation. That's a HIPAA violation by itself. Now, many contexts for research aggregates the information and removes the personal information and anonymizes that information. And at which point, again, the raw information by itself, the data points, are fairly open to use because of the fact that nothing is specifically identified to a particular person. Now, other components that could be liable is whether the information is then accurate. A big component that lawyers have had in the past year or so are lawyers who have been found to cite cases that have never existed, right? So that's not AI using data, that's just AI imagining things that don't exist. And so it becomes imperative for you to verify that the information that you gave out. But even with a fact check, I didn't present any of the specific cases as a whole that I didn't actually verify actually occurred, right? So I glossed through most of the information, but I didn't specifically talk about most of those cases because I didn't actually know whether or not they were actually real. And so for me to represent things that were not real would be fraudulent, and that's a cause of action. It's separate. And so ultimately, in the world of AI, nothing has changed. Everything remains the same. When it comes in terms of misusing other people, it's breach of privacy, it's fraudulent representation, There are some new laws that have passed, for instance, the new law that concerns deepfakes and illicit content, right? And so those things are in development. They're still many years behind, but we are all relying effectively on old existing law to enforce new circumstances. And so that's where the liability comes. Did you have prior knowledge? Are you fraudulently representing information that is inaccurate? Did you defame someone or hurt someone else's reputation? And that may be the real liability. Yes?
Yeah, kind of building on that, since we kind of mentioned like liability insurance. Do you think the insurance company would just end up banning the use of like AI generated, I guess, content? I mean, like the fact that she was talking about gathering data, using liability like in the policy, just put that sort of general ban.
I'm not an expert in insurance, but here's what I would imagine insurance companies would do, because it's the exact same thing they do in other contexts. It's not that they would ban it, they would exclude it. So just like when you live in Houston, many of the homeowners insurance policies in Houston exclude flooding. Meaning, if you are flooding, they don't cover it. You have to buy additional insurance for it. So it's not that insurance companies would ban certain activities, they just would not cover that as an actual liability. That if you did X, Y, and Z, and it violates something like using AI in a way that could subject you to defamation lawsuits or invasions of privacy, they would not cover those damages.
It's already started, cyber controversy.
Absolutely.
Let me introduce my background. I was a former vice president of the Taiwanese Student Association. I was the content creator for the Living Guide before. I digitalized from the physical copy to the digital format of Living Guide. So I'm just curious, is any copyright or like regulation can protect our writing? Because I think this is sort of an open source resource for everybody to reach. But I think everybody put the effort, and this is on the public. So is there any regulation or law that can protect this content?
You know, the interesting thing about copyright law is that it's very easy to create. If I were to go to the whiteboard and just write, "Hello, my name is Jack," that writing itself is copyrighted. Right? The mere act of writing it down and expressing that is a copyrighted protection. Now, copyright protection simply doesn't mean that other people cannot reproduce what I created. Could other people write, "Hello, my name is Jack"? They could. But could they write it in my same handwriting and manner? Yes, if they were able to mimic it to a certain extent. But the real part is that they couldn't copy what I already had. So they couldn't take a photo of it and then use that photo of my original handwriting. So copyright law, especially your context, right? If you wrote a student handbook, the act of putting together that handbook is copyright protected. Other people could not copy it verbatim. But could people use the information, summarize it, repurpose it, modify it? Possibly, right? And where it then comes down to is a question of damages. In fact, this is my favorite thing, Justin probably knows at some point, is what is the consequential result of what they did? Because if I copied something and nobody read that copy, there's no damages, right? I'm not harmed by it. If somebody copied it and then gave it to everybody in the world, and it never affected my original content or my reputation, again, there's no damage to it. And so for it to be protectable or to be enforceable, someone actually has to create some sort of economic or reputational damage. And so is the protection there Yes. Does protection matter? That's the hard part. Thank you.
好，那我们等一下有问题的话，我们有问题的话，我们可以私底下再问，因为他还坐在这边，但是大家要抓紧时间。那我现在想要再给我们讲员一个掌声鼓励，谢谢他。好，那我们先来一张大合照，在上食物链接。老板已经帮我准备了第一轮，大家不容易先上推盘，就是他帮我们准备，我第一轮是就是老板帮你精选，然后今天老板很好，他甜虾每个人都直接送。然后对，所以我们真的等一下好好谢谢老板。老板他现在有点火气啦，我等一下就请老板说，老板很帅，但是他已经死会，不好意思，问过。好，然后那我们现在请就大家挤到这边，我们先一张大合照，然后大合照完大家就可以吃饭喽。然后